There are hundreds of Christmas movies out there, and more being added every year, but only a dozen or so over the years have become holiday classics, and A Christmas Story is definitely high up on that list. What gives this 1983 family comedy its staying power? Why does A Christmas Story work?
Too many people have lost sight of the true meaning of Christmas.
Mom! Hush! Shut up, Ralphie!
Any film needs to balance a number of elements and depends on the work of multiple people. It's hard to have a hit film without solid acting, directing, cinematography, effects, and editing, all of which A Christmas Story has in spades. But you could have all that and not make a good film, if you don't have a decent script. Fortunately, A Christmas Story doesn't fall short there either.
I triple dog dare ya!
So specifically, what works about A Christmas Story's story? Much of the credit there goes to the source material. Gene Shepard's In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, a 1966 short story collection loosely compiled as a novel. The movie A Christmas Story is based primarily on 4 of the short stories from that book of 31, and 1 story from another short story collection of Shepard's. The screenplay for the movie was written by Shepard himself, with Lee Brown and Bob Clark. So this unified voice, the voice of the author of the original stories, being the voice that gives us the movie, does help. The fact that we are getting the actual story and not somebody else's interpretation of the story. It also helps for this particular story that Shepard was a radio personality. He was not originally a writer. He was hesitant to actually write a novel and publish one. It was only thanks to the encouragement and assistance of the great poet Shel Silverstein that he was able to get his first novel put together and published. And that novel is a success and is considered Shepard's greatest work because it stays true to his voice, his natural voice, the voice of a hometown storyteller, which is one of the keys to this story working. By the way, in 2003, the stories that make up A Christmas Carol were excerpted from the 2 books that they started in and made into their own book called A Christmas Story, which I have to admit is the only Shepard work that I have actually read. But it is very good, so if you like the film, I highly suggest you read the book as well. This oral storytelling skill helps Shepard to accomplish several things that work together to seize the audience's emotions and hold their attention throughout the film. The first is an ear for natural character dialogue. The adults sound like normal human adults most of the time. The kids sound like kids, not mini adults. Add to this, the fantasy daydream sequences feel like something that a kid might actually daydream. And I thought that when I was a kid watching this movie in the 80s, and I still think it now. The second aspect of the writing that works is the clear through line. There's this central narrative that ties all the various, otherwise disconnected story threads together. We see this from the opening scene, when Ralphie establishes the central need that will drive his actions throughout the rest of the movie.
Ralphie, what would you like for Christmas?
I want an official Red Ryder Carbine Action 200 range model air rifle.
The Red Ryder range model air rifle, with a compass in the stock and this thing which tells time. Crucially important to the entire film. Now, there's reasons why the story shouldn't work. Because all of these stories are very disconnected. There are 5 stories in the film, 5 core stories, and in the original book, only one of them takes place at Christmas time. They don't have any interaction with each other. So, to actually turn this into a filmable script required some finessing. It required choosing something as the central storyline that would tie everything else together. And that core desire that Ralphie is pursuing in every single scene of this film, every single thing is oriented around that central narrative. That's not the way it is in the books. In the books, all the narratives are pretty well disconnected. But here is all tied in, so we are able to follow it, and we're able to root for Ralphie as he goes through his journey. He doesn't exactly have a character arc, though. Ralphie doesn't really learn much of a lesson. But in this case, that's okay. We get to see him enjoying and suffering kiddom, and we enjoy and suffer it along with him. What helps us, watching from one scene to the next, is that central desire. Despite the disjointed narrative of the various storylines, we root for him, and we keep watching to see if he's going to succeed. Is he going to get this BB gun?
No, I want an official red undercover knife and 200 rifle.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Ho, ho, ho.
He's a protagonist on a mission, and we are following along with him on that mission with him. So what if the climax to his hero's journey is a dad ex machina?
He looks like a deranged Easter bunny.
It is Christmas, after all. Third aspect of the writing of the film that works is the narrator.
Ah, there it is. My house. How could I ever forget it?
Though he's merely a voice, the narrator is an operative and crucially important character in the film. No wonder the role is voiced by Gene Shepard himself. He gives us the degree of distance that we need to appreciate the movie, no matter how young or old, quote-unquote, we are. Since the narrator is an older man reflecting on his child self's view of the plot, his conversational, friendly storytelling tone adds to the humorously reflective point of view, and we end up with a hilarious and poignant piece of art. So what can a close reading, aka a close viewing of A Christmas Story do for us as writers? Number one, it can remind us to listen closely to how people talk and watch closely to see how they communicate messages beyond or even in contrast to what they say, via their tone of voice, their body language, facial expressions, etc. Don't observe them in a stalker way, by the way. You can observe without being creepy. Then, practice describing all of that what you just observed on paper. Capture what the experience of different people conversing and interacting feels and sounds like. Never mind what they actually say. Dialogue should closely approximate real speech, but should never mimic it exactly. That would be a nightmare.
Don't you give me that look, you're gonna get it!
Of course, many films could serve as solid examples of careful human observation. A Christmas Story just happens to be one particularly good example, as proven by how many people love and resonate with the film and rewatch it every year. Second takeaway. If you like writing memoir-type short stories, or any short stories really, and want to try your hand at a novel but feel intimidated by the length of the project, this gives you a potential model to follow. A series of memoir-style short stories loosely tied together by a single central thread. A character's all-devouring desire, for instance. Plenty of novels have come together this way, and many of them have been very good. Third takeaway. Practice telling stories in different narrative voices, particularly narrators at a specific-ish time of life telling stories about another time of life, revealing the reflection of an older character who's already experienced and learned the lessons that his or her younger self has yet to face. This can help give you insight into the many perspectives and voices you can explore in telling your stories, and the distance at which you can set the audience or reader from the story, and you can see how that impacts the audience differently depending on the distance that they feel from the story. I hope you're enjoying your holiday season so far. If you've seen A Christmas Story, what are your thoughts on it? Leave them in the comments below. And until next time, good luck and good writing. Happy holidays. Peace on earth.